This lesson, I'm going to try and help out everyone with this idea behind using Google Forms to test for anchor pricing. So we have this idea of anchor effects, and it's like when we present certain information to a person that might influence their decision or their feelings about something else. So we'll start off with just kind of the overview. We have problem, plan, data, analysis, and conclusion. And the first thing that we're going to do right now is look at the problem statement. I started off with this kind of problem statement that kind of went like this. Does student perception of how expensive a $100 graphic t-shirt change when presented with a more expensive similar t-shirt compared to not being presented with a more expensive similar t-shirt? This question's okay, it's a bit wordy, and I think it doesn't kind of make sense in the middle of it. There is a key problem here with this question. When you answer this kind of question, students' perception of how expensive, what kind of questions are we going to ask them? Are we going to ask them, do you think this $100 t-shirt's too expensive? And then they say yes or no. Well, an answer like yes or no is not going to work for us because that's a discrete kind of categorical response. And in experiments, what I need to do is I need to get to a continuous variable, like something like numbers. I need to get to numbers. The other idea that I was floating by was, well, what if we gave them a rating scale to say, well, rate how expensive you think this is? This too presents complications because what we end up getting is we get discrete, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and like 5 it means it's very expensive and 1 means it's not really that expensive. So I could ask it that way. The only problem is that I get myself back into this discrete category sort of situation where like 1 is a category, 2 is a category, and I thought that would be too difficult. So the last thing I thought about was, well, why don't I just say, instead of telling them it's $100 and do they think it's expensive, why don't I just ask them, how much would you spend on this? Show them a $100 t-shirt and I say, how much will you spend on this? And if I just ask the person without showing them anything else, they'll probably say something like $30 or $40. Now, if I show them another t-shirt from the same label that's like $1,200 and ask them, well, how much do you think this t-shirt is? I might get a lot of students who put in, very larger numbers than say $30 or $40. The good thing about this is that now I'm getting them to put in a number, and that number is a continuous number. Like, people can choose to put 33 in, they could put 44 in, or whatever number they want. That leads me to the next part, which is a revision of this question, and we get down to this. Will students who are presented with an expensive t-shirt be willing to spend more on a similar t-shirt than those who are not presented with an expensive t-shirt? So now we're getting to this point of, well, how much are people willing to spend based upon the information that I present to them before I ask them how much they're going to spend? Of course, if you've watched the video on developing a good problem statement, this is not sufficient yet. So it came up with a hypothesis. I think that students who are shown a really expensive graphic t-shirt will be willing to spend more on a similar kind of t-shirt. Finally, next step to kind of make this problem statement really shine, I went and did some research. I found businessinsider.com and they talked about anchor pricing. Very fascinating. There's lots of research online about it. You can check it out, anchor pricing. And it's really about how companies are kind of manipulating consumer habits by the way that they price things. This is what the experiment that I'm doing right now is going to show. I'm choosing t-shirts from Supreme because Supreme are selling ridiculously expensive shirts right now. Some of their shirts are like worth $1,300, and then we get down to like some that are $30 US. We need to get back to the plan now, and let's start talking about that. First thing is, how is this going to be done? Well, given our current circumstances, this is beginning of 2020, and if anyone was living in a hole and didn't understand what was going on in early 2020, we had a pandemic, and therefore schools weren't allowed to operate anymore, and students were staying at home. And this can be done at any given time. It doesn't matter if schools are out or not. An online survey is perfectly fine for this kind of experiment. What we're going to do is we're going to use online surveys. We're going to use Google Forms to create a survey that will answer the experimental question, and we're going to select participants from the class lists. Next thing, what are my variables? Well, we've got treatment and explanatory variables. Now, the treatment and explanatory variable is this idea of anchor price versus no anchor price. And then the response variable to that is the amount that students are willing to spend on it, and I'm going to get them to just enter in any number they want. The groups, we've got a treatment group. They're the ones who are going to get a survey. Now I'm going to design the survey so that they get shown the picture and say, okay, from the same label, this is a very expensive shirt that they've made, and how much would you spend on this t-shirt, and show them the $100 t-shirt and see what they say. And for the control group, they're going to get the survey normally without the anchor price, and I'm just going to ask them how much they would pay for that $100 t-shirt. Now remember, I'm not going to say if it's $100 or not, because I want to get them to tell me how much they're willing to spend on it. Lastly, I'm going to use random allocation to make sure I'm sending out the survey to selected people, and not just sending it out there and seeing who will take it or not. So I'm going to randomly allocate the class list. I'm going to use a function in Google Sheets to do that, and I'm going to show you how to do that in just a few moments. What I've done is I've gone to grab a fake name list. I'm going to create a sheet. We've got group, and then we've got student name, and then I've got my random number. If I do maybe I could do equals rand between 1 and 2, and then for every 1 I'll put that into the treatment group, and then every 2 I'll put that into the control group. Okay, and then I'm going to click and drag this down. Faster way is to double click, and I double click that, and now I have my different groups. Every time I make a change to this now, this is all going to change because it's a function that keeps updating. In order to stop that from happening, what you can do is you can just click on the whole list, shift click the whole list, and we're going to copy that. I'm going to use Command C, or you can use Control C if you're a PC user. Copy, or you can go up here and click Edit Copy, and then we're going to paste special. Now if I paste it, it's going to paste the functions in, and that's not going to work for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to paste the values only, and that puts the values in. And now really what I can do is I can just go up here, group, and I'm going to click the filter button, which looks like a martini glass, and click that, and now we can sort it by number. Watch here, sort A to Z, and these are all my treatment groups, so I'll call this treatment. And this will be my control group. So this is probably the fastest way to separate them into groups. Now, ran between 1 and 2, it randomly chooses between one or those two numbers. So there's an equal, on average, about 50% will be 1s and 50% will be 2s. In some cases, you might get more 2s than you get 1s, and you might get more 1s than 2s. Generally, this is okay because usually they're pretty close to one another, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. So that's how I go about random allocating them into groups. There are other ways, but this is probably the fastest way. All right, let's make a Google form now to ask these questions. So first we're going to go in here, we're going to click on New, and if you don't see Google Forms, click More, and then we have Google Forms here. This will open up a new form. And now what we want, this is untitled form. We won't title it right now, I'll just show you how to make the questions. So this will be, I'm going to, for the time being, I'm going to call this control group. We're not going to leave it like that because we don't want people to know they're in the control group. What we want to do is we want to ask how much they are willing to spend on a shirt. Okay, so here we go. How much would you be willing to spend on the t-shirt above? And I'm going to put the t-shirt in just a few moments. Enter number, whole numbers in dollars. Enter whole number dollar amounts. Okay. Now, if we don't want to put that in the question, we can cut that out. And then we can put in here description, and then we could put like a little description in there, and it kind of shows up like that. And this gives an option here. I don't want an option. I want them to be able to write that in. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose a short answer. And if you want to be really tricky about this, which is really good because I need them to enter a number, right? We can prevent them from entering texts like, say, for instance, 30, like writing it out rather than putting in the number. I can go down here and we can go to response validation, and response validation will just say that we want a number, and that number has to be greater than 0. And if we want, we can give them a custom error text, which basically says put a dollar, enter a dollar amount greater than 0. And we put a dollar sign there. Okay? And then this is the question that we'll ask them. Now, we will ask that for both groups. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this form, and I'll make a new one for the treatment group that has the first part, which is to show them a picture of a more expensive shirt. Now, I went to Supreme and got pictures of these two shirts. This is the Supreme Brooklyn box logo at $1,300 US. I just can't. It's a white t-shirt with a little box on it. It's like, what on earth is this stuff? Anyway, yeah, so we have that one. And we also have this one, this black tee, which is $99. I actually don't think this is a good idea. I'm going to go and get a white one instead, because I think they need to be as similar as possible. We want to control for sources of variation, and I don't want the type of shirt to change too much. I want it to be a white t-shirt and a white t-shirt, so that we can get a fair comparison that's just about the price, not the style of the shirt. All right, I'm going to go do that now, and I'll be back in a few minutes.
298 frozen patties later.
Okay, so I went off to the website, Streetwear, and I found some new Supreme shirts. Now, the one I found initially, if you have a look here, is the expensive one. This one. What I wanted to do was I wanted to avoid having one that was like stylistically different, because I want to control for all different types of variation in the experiment. So I didn't want this one. This one looked like it had a bit more design on it, and it was black. I want to keep them quite as similar as possible. Now, I can't believe how difficult it was to find one that was just plain white. I found this one. Even this one has a bit of graphic on it. And then I found this one. This one was alright. So basically I'm going to go with this one. And this one's $150. Still really expensive. Now the thing is, when I add this to my Google form, I don't want the price to be there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up in Apple. I'm going to crop it. I don't know how you guys will do it, but you figured out how you can do it on your computer. And for me, I'm just going to highlight this area here, and I'll just keep that as Supreme, so we know that this is a Supreme shirt, and I'm going to crop that off and save that. And what I'll do here is I'm going to add a photo. So I'm going to click down here at the bottom, add a photo, drag the file in. Waiting. Yep, here we go. Let me just open this up a bit bigger, and basically image title, what I have is plain white t-shirt from Supreme. Yep. So there we go. Now I want this up at the top, and when we scroll down, how much would you be willing to spend on the t-shirt above? Now, we want this same one, but with that anchor price in it. So let's go and duplicate this. Yeah, make a copy. So I'm going to make a copy of this Google form. So I'll make a copy, and I'm going to call this treatment group, and I'm going to save it. Press OK. And now I have two similar Google forms. What we want to do is we want to show them the picture first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new section, add a section, and basically what a section is, it's like a whole nother page. So they're going to see one page, and then they'll see the next page. All right, so in section 1, what I want to do is I want to add a photo. Okay, and so I might say here, Supreme shirts. So we'll kind of just insert that as a anchor. They'll see that, and then we'll continue to the next section. And in this section, we'll just write down how much would you spend. So I'm going to just copy that over here. Supreme, I'll call it Supreme. I'm going to copy that out, put that down here. How much? And I think that this is probably fine. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to test it to see what it looks like. So you can click on this 3-dot thing and say get pre-filled link. We will click on that. And here's what it looks like. Supreme, below is a t-shirt from the company Supreme, which sells trendy streetwear. Yep. And then it doesn't show you the next page. It shows it all in one continuous go. How much would you spend? We're trying to get an idea about how much students would spend on a plain white t-shirt, and then we show them Supreme. And then they have to answer their problem here. Let's type in 30. Enter. Oh, enter dollar amount. Remember we put that response validation in there, so we'll actually have to put in an amount. So 50, and if you put that in, it'll be fine. And then you just send away. All right, so we now have our 2 forms, which is good. And those are stored inside of my Google Drive. So I have my control group 1 here, and my treatment 1 groups showed up here. Next, we just need to make sure that all the data is going into the right file. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to just, I'm going to create a spreadsheet. Well, I'll just use the one I used before. So it's my entitled spreadsheet with the names in it. I'm going to get rid of these names really quickly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the spreadsheet experiment data. All right. Now, go to the control group 1. And where it says responses, we're going to click on that. Now, it doesn't actually know where to put the data yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell it where we need to put it. So we'll go to the 3 dots here, click on select response destination, and we're going to select an existing spreadsheet that we've already created. Select that one. And if we've just recently made it, it'll come up in our most recent list. Click on experiment data, select, and now that will be going into that spreadsheet. Have a look up here, click on my experiment, and you can see that coming in from form responses 1. Now this is not helpful to us because it's really hard to say which one's form response, like control group or the treatment group. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this. So right click, click rename, and say control group. Rename it control group. And we're going to do the same thing for the treatment group. Go to the treatment group, go to responses, go to select response destination, select existing spreadsheet, and then we will select that spreadsheet that I just used. Click there and press select. Now what it does is it creates another tab for this spreadsheet. If we go in there and have a look, it's created a second tab. I'm going to rename that one. I'm going to call this treatment group. And then that will collect all of the information that we need. Well, hopefully this was helpful, and I'm looking forward to see what responses I get. I'm going to send this out to 2 of my classes and see what they have to say.